but it was dated August 27, 2021. And the next one, incidentally, is due on the 31st of December 2023, so in a few days. But the 13th actuarial report says on the executive summary, made a number of observations. But the main findings, if I may be allowed to read, this is an analysis by the actuaries of the condition of our Social Security funds. The report's assessment of Social Security policy and design indicators suggests that current contribution and benefit provisions provide a good level of benefit adequacy and income protection to most workers and pensioners. It goes on. Forgive me, let me get to where I need to get to. When reserves are exhausted, there will only be two possible sources of additional income to meet benefit payments: higher contributions and special transfers from government. At the current stage of fund finances, higher investment returns will have little material impact on overall reserves. Projections were also made under two different sets of assumptions, one optimistic and one pessimistic, following our key results expressed in ranges for the three projection sets. Total expenditure will exceed contribution income in all years. Total expenditure will first exceed total income between 2022 and 2027. The fund will be depleted between 2038 and 2043. The pay-as-you-go rate in 2040, around the time the fund is projected to be depleted, will be between 27% and 30%. The average long-term cost of benefits over the next 60 years, often referred to as the general average premium, is between 27% and 37%. It goes on. Other than Anguilla, St. Kitts-Nevis is the only OECS territory that has not yet made major social security reforms intended to improve benefit design given changes in socioeconomic conditions since 1978 and to enhance long-term sustainability at affordable contribution rates. Had reforms been made 10 or more years ago, and the age for full pensions now been 65, and pension deferred until substantially retired, age pension expenditure would have been approximately 11 million less and contributions 2.2 million more in 2020. As shown below, reforms to the age pension similar to those made by others would result in a significant change in future outlook without greatly affecting current and soon-to-be pensioners. And it goes on with some graphs. But let us look at the recommendations from the 13th actuarial report, dated 27th August, 2021. As fund depletion looms, immediate mitigating measures are required. Ideally, the burden felt by those measures should be shared by all, including those who are already in receipt of a pension. Therefore, given that inflation has been negative in recent years, no increases to pensions in payment are recommended at this time. To ensure that measures aimed at extending the life of the fund are well thought through, the board should immediately prepare a funding policy and a benefits policy. And it goes on to set out what those should look like. But what I found was interesting is the recommendations. Introduce, one, a concept with an early pension age 62 and a normal pension age increasing to 65 by 1 year every 2 years. That is, 63 is your retirement age in 2023, and 2024, 64 in 2025 and 2026, and 65 start in 2027. Pensions awarded prior to normal pension age should be reduced by 0.5% for each month they are awarded early. Persons under normal pension age who continue to work for a certain level of income should not be allowed to collect their age pension. Revise the rate at which pensions accrue so that the maximum 60% is reached after 40 years instead of 35 years. And it is further recommended that the contribution rate be increased to 13% in line with one of the two following schedules, 1% in each of 2023 and 2024, or 0.5% each for 4 years, 2023 to 2026. The above reforms to age pension and a 2% increase in contribution rate are estimated to defer fund depletion to 2050. Now, why did I use some of my time to read that into the record. Because in essence, when we look at the report, the last actuarial report being the 13th report, it suggested that our Social Security fund needed some radical reforms in order to ensure its continued viability. And so while I welcome, definitely, what the government is seeking to do for those who are at the bottom rung in terms of Social Security benefit, I also feel that we need to pay some attention to what the actuarial report is telling us about the state of the Social Security fund. Because currently it appears that we are depleting the fund at a faster rate than we are replenishing the fund. And like anything else, if you're spending more than you're bringing in, it is only a matter of time before the fund is depleted. And they're saying to us that even with those measures, they're only deferring or delaying the depletion of the fund until 2050. We're already in 2024 in 2 weeks. So you're talking another 26 years. They're suggesting the fund will be gone. And I find it useful to note that they're saying that only Anguilla and us have not done the reform process that is necessary. I'm drawing to a close, but I want to point out that paragraph 129 of the Honorable Prime Minister's presentation. He says this: Madam Speaker, our government has adhered to a methodical, prudent, and pragmatic approach in fulfilling the entrusted mandate from the people of St. Kitts-Nevis. It brings me great satisfaction to announce that following thorough deliberation, a comprehensive measure will be implemented on Thursday, 21st December 2023, encompassing the disbursement of 1 full month's salary to all civil servants and GAEs within the government of St. Kitts and Nevis and the Nevis Island administration, including pensioners and step workers. We extend encouragement to statutory corporations to emulate these payments for the benefit of their employees as well. That generated a lot of calls to me. And I myself was seeking to get some clarification because it suggests that it was a full month's salary. But when the mover explained in his commentary yesterday, I believe what I took away is that it was a 50% bonus that was being given. Put differently, if your wage is $2,000 for the month, you'll get an extra $1,000. And so I want to make that clear, especially for those people in Nevis who have been calling me and asking me about their double. That, as I understand it, it is not quite a double. It is half of a double. 50% is what is intended. Huh? You're getting me even more confused. Half of a double is 50%. That is what is being offered. And so I make that very clear so that our people understand what the implications are. I now make 2 final points. Then I will take my seat. No, I promise I won't use all the time. 2 final points. I look at page 38 of the audit report for 2022. I believe this is a matter that jumped out at me, and I want to 38 of the audit report. It's tucked away in the back of the audit report. But it talks about arrears of revenue, Madam Speaker. Here's what the auditor is telling us. Arrears of revenue. Page 38 of the audit report for 2022. The statement of arrears of revenue is a requirement of the Finance Administration Act, Chapter 20.13. The statement shows arrears of revenue as of December 31st, 2022 of $87.9 million. Arrears of revenue as of December 31st, 2022 of $87.9 million. When you look at the table, Finance, Customs and Excise has arrears of revenue of 1.8 million. Inland Revenue has arrears of revenue of $63.7 million. Water, has arrears of revenue of $19.4 million. And then the others, Ministry of Health, Tourism, etc., small amounts. What that tells me is that people are not paying their water bill. $19.4 million. And our people need to understand that you can't expect that you're going to get these resources for free. I looked at a table the other day. St. Kitts has the cheapest water in the OECS. Even cheaper than Nevis. And our people need to understand that you have to pay to allow the government to recoup. Sound like I'm in government, isn't it? But that's the reality. It goes back to the whole idea of our people being responsible. Whether it's in terms of crime, see something, say something. Whether it's in terms of when you get the $1,000 for Johnny, you don't go music festival with the money. All of these are important initiatives that our people must be responsible, and our people cannot on the one hand be asking and saying we need more, increase our wages, increase our benefits, and on the other hand, $19 million owing in water. Finance, inland revenue. You know what that 63.7 million mean? A lot of people not paying their tax. And I know when I look at the explanation, they say a lot of it is tied up because people object. A large amount, I'm reading, of the outstanding tax and inland revenue are still under administrative review objections process. The administrative review allows the taxpayers dissatisfied with an assessment to make a request to the comptroller to review the assessment. The comptroller is then responsible for making a decision concerning the assessment. This is what is important now, Madam Speaker. The Tax Administration and Procedures Act, Cap 20.52, makes provisions for a taxpayer to make a further appeal to commissioners whose main function is hearing appeals against tax assessments. If a taxpayer disagrees with an administrative review decision, an appeal can be made to the commissioners. Significant outstanding amounts continue to be tied up in the administrative review stages. The recommendation of the previous year still stands. The income tax commissioners need to be appointed to aid the objections and appeal process at inland revenue. So what is happening is this. Some company out there is levied tax, $10 million. They say, no, I don't agree that I owe $10 million. So they appeal to the comptroller of inland revenue. The comptroller says to them, I have come to the decision that you owe the $10 million. They said, no, I want to appeal now to the tax commissioners. But guess what? We have not appointed any.
How come?
I don't know how come. I'm not in government, I'm in opposition.
You were there before?
I don't know. The point I'm trying to make is this. That it is a very clever way for people to jam up the system.
That's it. Bankrupting.
Because what it means is that every year I protest. Every year I object and say, no, that is not, I don't agree that that tax assessment is correct. And when the people at Inland Revenue said to you, yes, that is the amount, I appeal to the comptroller. And when the comptroller says, yes, that is the amount, I say, well, under the Tax Administration Procedures Act, I want to make a further appeal to the commissioners, because I know the government has not appointed any commissioners. So the result is that $63.7 million on the road that the government should have collected. When I look at the global figure of $87.9 million, I say, Lord, if I don't want it, send it to Nevis. $87.9 million of revenue that the federal government has on the road down here. You could do a lot with that. I make one final point, and that has to do with the cost of living. Madam Speaker, there is not a lot that we can do. locally about some aspects of the cost of living. Post-COVID, we have had supply chain issues across the world. We have had a tremendous increase in the cost of transportation. In Nevis, for example, we thought that we had a great plan, and we removed all taxes, customs, service charge, everything at the port. So we're not going to charge anything on food. The main supermarkets met with me. They said, great of you, Premier, but that's not going to make any difference. Because every week they claim, when they order food from Miami, the price on certain items keeps going up. And the shipping costs has gone up. And I know the government has been trying to grapple, but I feel that our people must understand that unless we start to grow more and feed ourselves, we're going to continue to have some of these problems of the pricing externally impacting what we pay internally. But there is a matter that I'm going to raise, and I'm sorry the Attorney General is not here, because I would really ask him to look at it. It is whether or not in some of our mechanisms of calculation, we are not exacerbating the burden on our people. And I want to speak specifically to customs. Now, I want, Madam Speaker, for us to understand in this House that if you bought an item for $1,000 overseas, and that item cost you $200 to get it here at the port, they are going to charge you on something they call CIF. What do you mean?
Cost, insurance, and freight.
See, I have a good man here with all the things. Cost, insurance, and freight. So you buy the item for $1,000, but when you add your insurance and freight, $1,200. And so the item arrives at the port, $1,200. When you get to the port, here's what happened. They work out the customs on the item. Let us say the customs charge for that category of item is 20%. They work that out. They work out the customs service charge, which is 6%. So, remember I said the item costs $1,000, you pay $200 to bring it, so you have a $1,200 value. CIF, cost, insurance, and freight. They work out 20% of that, hypothetically, because it falls into that category. That's the customs charge. They work out 6% of that. That's the customs service charge. And here they do now. They add back all of that to the CIF and then work out the VAT of 17%. You know what that means? We're paying tax on tax. You get the point I'm making, Madam Speaker? We're paying tax on tax. The way the methodology of calculation is not a straight line method across the board. They don't say $1,200 for the item, CIF, 20% duty, 6% customs, 17% VAT. They don't do it so. Not no markup. We're paying tax on tax. The way the matter is addressed now, they work out the 20% of the CIF. That's the customs duty. So 20% of $1,200. Don't know how much that is. How much that is? You add it back. They work out the 6% of the $1,200. They're then going to add that back. Then of the total of CIF, customs, and customs service charge, they then work out the 17%. So the customer is being asked to pay tax on tax. You're paying 17% tax on the customs charge, and you're paying 17% tax on your customs duty. So you're paying 17% on your 6%, you're paying 17% on the 20%, using the hypothetical example that I've used. Now you could help people a lot simply by streamlining the tax across the board. And say, listen, if the item costs $1,200, 20% is your customs, 6% is your custom service charge, 17% is your VAT across the line. And this add-back business that is happening, because instead of 1,200 now, 17% of 1,200, you end up paying 17% of 1,200 plus the 20% plus the 6%. So a lot of times when I speak to small business owners who are forced, because some of them, whether you're selling here, you're selling nails, you're selling whatever, you're bringing in your items, their big complaint is customs. A lot of them say, Lord, customs killing us. And for many of them, they're having a difficulty understanding why it is that we are using that mechanism of calculation where our VAT is being charged on tax as opposed to being charged on the cost of the item. And so I raise it. I know I'm on good ground because I spoke to a senior customs officer before I came, because I feel if we want to give an ease to people, then this is one way, by simply changing the formulation. I'm not asking to change the rate. Just changing the way it is formulated, we can give an ease to our people. Madam Speaker, I have spoken for longer than I anticipated. I would wish that I be given some credit for not speaking as long as I was given. And to say that I have sought to raise some matters in this budget response of regional, international significance, but all of which ultimately impact the lives and livelihoods of the people here in St. Kitts-Nevis. I am to hope that this budget has the effect that it is intended to have on the lives of our people. And ultimately, it's to make our people's lives better. I am to hope that as the various ministers report, that we will get some of the details that the mover would have spoken to in a general sense when he presented yesterday. And I'm to hope that this budget really has the consequences for us that we anticipate. I recognize that the government is trying valiantly to make provisions to redistribute wealth in some ways, to ensure that people get a little something. And while that is important, I want to continue to encourage us to change the way that we think about these programs and to ensure that we adhere to the cardinal tenet of government, which is to take care of people that need taking care of. And those who don't need it, they say where the ocean is already salt, don't throw salt in the sea. It's already salt. Let our resources go to the people that need it most. And this idea of this one-size-fits-all approach cannot continue because it is not sustainable. I hope if there's one soundbite that people take, is that soundbite, that it is not sustainable, and as a consequence, we cannot continue in that vein. Our people need a hand up, not a handout, and we must continue to do what we can as a government, those in government, those in opposition, because we are in this parliament speaking to various approaches perhaps, but to the same values of advancing the interests of the people of St. Kitts-Nevis. And I'm to hope that as this budget debate unfolds, as we hear the cut and thrust of debate, we will see and have an approach that benefits the maximum number of people in St. Kitts-Nevis. There are questions to be answered, particularly about this $5,000 to $18,000. Somebody called me and they say, we have a lot of non-nationals living here. Will it extend to their children, for example? Will it extend to them? These are all questions that I think we must look at in terms of the details that are to come. And so I encourage that detail, because the devil, as I say, is usually in the detail. How do we work these things through to ensure that what we're doing in St. Kitts-Nevis is reaching the people that need it and the people that we intend to reach? With those words, Madam Speaker, I want to thank you for the time, thank you for the attention, and appreciate very much having the opportunity for the 17th time to address this Honourable House in a budget debate. May it please you.
Thank you to the honorable member for Nevis 9. Would you wish for me to disclose how long you spoke? 2 hours and 56 minutes. 57 minutes. I believe we are at, Dr. Clark,
Yes, Madam Speaker.
I believe we are at a convenient time for lunch. We have to allow the workers to get some time to refresh themselves. I propose we return promptly at 2:35. We are pushing today because yes, promptly. We have to get a lot done today. I will be making rounds if I need to. We are resuming promptly at 2:35. House will rise for 1 hour.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
Dreaming of that perfect getaway? Hop aboard the Makana Ferry to the breathtaking islands of Saba.